Hi, welcome to the Gemara on Yud Bet Amud Aleph. We're starting in the third wide line down from the two dots. This is a homework video for those not in group 2. Chel parasu madai hapartimim. This is the Gemara moving on in the Psukim in the Megillah. So that's Esther Aleph Gimel. It describes those, the many or the armies of Persia and Media, hapartimim, the ministers. Partimim are like officials or ministers within the kingdom. Uktiv, but it also says, actually at the end of Megillat Esther, L'malchei Madayu Paras. It's in Parak Yud, to the kings of Media and Persia. So the Gemara is noticing that sometimes it puts Madai, Media, next to the Partimim, and sometimes it puts the word Madai next to the king. So who were they? Were they the ministers or were they the kings? Amar Rava. So Rava explains, Atznuye Atznu behadade. They made a deal with each other. Atznuye is like a t'nai, like a condition that they made with one another. Iminan malche minaychu ifrachei. V'iminaychu malche minan ifrachei. So they made a deal. If the kings come from us, then the ifrachei, the ministers, the other important people come from you. And if the kings come from you, then the ministers and the nobles come from us. So that's why sometimes it's Malchei Madai Paras and sometimes it's Madai Partimim. They switched off who was king and who was minister. Beharoto et Osher Kvod Malchuto. Continuing in the Megillah, with the Achashverosh showing them all the riches of his house when he had his party. Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina. Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina says, "Milamed shlavash bigdei kuhuna." This teaches us that he Achashverosh wore the clothes of the Kohen. K'tiv hacha yikar tiferet gdulato. Here it says yikar tiferet gdulato. That's how it describes what he showed them. Uktiv hatam, and there it says lechavod letifaret. That's describing the bigdei kuhuna. So it's a hekesh, it's a connection. So it's speaking about bigdei kuhuna in both places. Uvimot hayamim ha'ela, begomer. At the end of those days, when those days were complete, this is again describing the party. Rav Shmuel, so you have Rav and Shmuel. Chad amar melech pikeach haya, v'chad amar melech tipesh haya. So one says he was a clever king, and the other says he was a stupid king. Man amar melech pikeach haya. The one who says that he was a clever king, Shapir avad zakari v'rechika beresha. It's a good thing that he did. Shapir means good or well, so it's a good thing that he did to first bring in those who were far away, to have a party for people who were outside of Shushan right away. Because the people of his city, Matya is a city, the people of his city, at any time that he wanted, he could appease them. So it was smart that he right away invited people from outside the city to come for a party. Umanda amarti peshaya, and for the one who says that he was stupid, it's because it was necessary for him, what he should have done was to bring close to him the people in his city first. Because if those people were to rebel against him, Hani havu kaime behade. Then, because if there was rebellion against him, those would be the people who would stay with him. In other words, better to first get the people close to him on his side, because if there's a rebellion, those are the people who he needs to have stick with him. Shalu Talmidav at Rashbi, Mipnei ma nitchayvu sonehen shel Yisrael shebo to hador kliya. So the students asked Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, his students asked him, for what reason were Sonehem Shel Yisrael? I'll put that in single quotes. Sonehem Shel Yisrael is euphemistic. It should mean the enemies of Israel, but it actually means the Jews. So for what reason were the Jews of that generation obligated to be destroyed? Meaning, what did they do that was so bad that their punishment was to be total destruction? Amar lahem, so Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says back to them, Imru atem. You tell me the answer. What do you think? Amrulo, so they said to him, because they got enjoyment from the Su'udah of that evil one, meaning they attended Achashverosh's Su'udah, and Rashi here speaks about the fact that it was that the Jews did attend his Su'udah, his meal. Maybe specifically only some of them, the Jews of Shushan, but some of them did go. Im ken shebeshushan yahargu, shebechol ha'olam kulo al yahargu. So if so, Rashbi says back to them, then just the Jews in Shushan should be killed, but the Jews in the entire world should not be killed, right? That's not, attending the meal, that's not sufficient to obligate all Jews everywhere. Amrulo, so the student said back to him, Emor ata. Okay, you give us an answer. Amar lahem, so he said to them, Mipnei shehishtachavu l'tzelam, because they bowed down to an idol. And Rashi explains that this was in the days of Nebuchadnezzar. Amrulo, so they said back to Rashbi, V'chi maso panim yesh b'davar? Is there forgiveness for such a thing? Meaning, okay, if that's what they did, then they really should have been destroyed, and they shouldn't have gotten the miracle. Rashi says maso panim refers to the miracle that they were saved. Amar lahem, so he says back to them, Hem lo asu ela lifnim. They didn't do it except lifnim, meaning they were only pretending to worship the idol. They didn't really mean it, but they were worshiping or seeming to worship out of fear because they were worried they would be killed otherwise. So too, God only pretended with them, right? God didn't actually destroy them, just the way they didn't actually worship Avodah Zarah. And this is what is written, Kilo inam milibo, that God didn't oppress them or doesn't hurt them of his own accord or fully with his heart. Okay, moving on in the Psukim. B'chatzar ginat bitan hamelech. This is a reference to where the party took place, in the courtyard of the garden of the palace of the king, so that's a lot of places. Rav and Shmuel again, Chad amar, hara'ui lechatzer lechatzer, hara'ui legina legina, hara'ui lebitan lebitan. So one of them said it was a party that was tracked, that was divided. Those who were appropriate to be in the Chatzer were in the Chatzer, those who were appropriate to be in the Gan were in the Gan, or Gina, in the garden, and those who were appropriate to be in the palace were in the palace. The Chadamar, and the other one said, Hoshivan b'Chatzer, v'lo hechziktan. He put them in the courtyard, but they didn't all fit. It was too small. Bagina, and then in the garden, v'lo hechziktan, but it also didn't hold them all. Until he put them all in the palace, and that was able to hold them all. So it was a moving party, it was a progression. But Matnita Tana, in a Tanaitic source we learned, Hoshivan b'chatzer, upatach lahem shnei ptachim. So he put them in the chatzer, in the courtyard, and opened two doors for them, achad legina, v'achad lebitan. One to the gina, the garden, and one to the bitan. So they were in this sort of in-between space, but they had spillover into both of those locations. Moving on in the pasuk, chor karpasu tchelet, descriptions of the riches that Achashverosh had present at this party. My chor, what is chor? Rav amar, chari chari. Rav says chari chari, which means something like lots of little holes. This was, Rashi says maaseh machad, it was stitched with a needle. Maybe it was like crocheted lace, and it was such fine stitching that it had lots of holes in it. Ushmuel amar, milat levana hitzia lahem. It was a white sheet that he put out for them, a white fabric, because chor is like chiver, Rashi explains, means pale. Karpas, that word karpas, amar b'yosi bar chanina, karim shel pasim. They were striped pillows, striped or very fine cushions. Al galile chesef amudei shesh, mitot zahav achesef. So this is again the description of the richness of the surroundings at the party. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer, hara'ui lekesef lekesef, So some people got silver cushions and some people got gold cushions. It depended on whether you were worthy of the silver or worthy of the gold. Amar lo Rabbi Nechemia. Rabbi Nechemia said to him, Im ken ata metil kin'a b'seuda. If so, you would throw jealousy into the meal, meaning that's not a good idea to sort of rank people that way within one meal. Ella, rather, he has a different idea of what was going on. Hem shel kesef v'raglehen shel zahav. The kind of the seats or the cushions were made of silver and the legs were gold. Bahat vashesh, again continuing these descriptions of the materials available at the party. Amar Rav Asi. Rav Asi said, Avanim shemitchutatot al ba'alehen. Al ba'alehen. These were stones that were fine stones. Mitchutatot maybe means like either like very shiny, like they sparkle a lot, or that they're hard to find. Mitchutatot, it's hard for their owners to find them. V'chen hu omer, and so too it says in Zechariah, Avnei Nezer mitnosesot al admato. Same basic idea. Avnei Nezer, these precious stones that were sparkling on the floor, that were hard to find, and were then the floor was made out of them. Rashi seems to think the point of this all is that these are stones that are very hard to find, very precious stones. V'dar v'socharet, continuing in the pasuk, again descriptions of the materials of the party. Rav Amar Dari Dari. Rav said rows. Rashi says shurot. So you had row upon row of these stones. Shmuel Amar, and Shmuel says Evan Tova yesh b'krachei hayam. There's a precious stone in the depths of the ocean. V'dara shma, and it's called Dara, and that's the stone that they used. Hoshiva be'emsa seuda umeira lahem katzahara, and they would put it in the middle of the meal, and it would create light for them as though it was the middle of the afternoon. Rashi says that the word socharet is like the word sahara, which means moon. So that lit the space for them. Today, Rabbi Yishmael Tana, in the house of Rabbi Yishmael, they taught shikara dror l'chol ba'alei schora. That socharet means he literally proclaimed freedom for all the merchants. He lifted the sales tax for them, and so that was a form of freedom, and that's what socharet refers to. V'hashkot b'klei zahav v'kelim mikelim shonim. Again, describing the riches of the party, the kelim that they used, the vessels that they used. Mishunim mibaile. It should say, the word it should use to mean like all different types of kelim, it should say mishunim. The Gemara thinks that the word shonim is sort of strange. Amar Rava says, Yatzda bat kol, v'amra lahem, rishonim kalu mipnei kelim, v'atem shonim b'hem. Rava says that a heavenly voice came out and said, earlier ones, right, people before you died, were destroyed because of kelim, because of the kelim, as we know, of the Beit HaMikdash. Tem shonim behem, and you are shonim in the sense of repeating. You're repeating the sin. You're doing it again, implying that the kelim here are the kelim of the Beit HaMikdash, and it's an implication that there's a bat call saying you're making the same mistake again. The Yein Malchut Rav. Basically lots of wine, continuing the discussion of the riches of the party. Amar Rav, so Rav says, Melamed shekol echad ve'echad hishkehu yayin shegadol himenu b'shanim. Everyone got wine that was older than he or she was. V'hashiach hadat, enones, that's the continuation of the pasuk. So the drinking was appropriate, there was no one was forced to do anything. My chadat, what is this word chadat here? Amar Rav Chanan Mishum Meir, Kedat Shel Torah. It was like the law of the Torah, like the religion of the Torah. Madat Shel Torah Achila Merabah Mishtia, Af Seudato Shel Torah Shah Achila Merabah Mishtia. Just as the law of the Torah is that there's more eating than drinking, so too in the Seudah of that evil person Achashverosh, there was more eating than drinking. Rashi says that this is like the korbanot, that when you have a korban with both both food and drink, there's always more food than there is liquid. And he discusses amounts to prove this. So Achashverosh's meal followed this rule as well. Enones, this idea, again, of the way the drinking was set up. Amar Rabbi Elazar said, Melamed shekol echad ve'echad hishkeu miyain medinato. This teaches that everyone got to drink the wine of his location, the wine from where he came from. So if you were from Champagne, then you drank champagne. Right? Wines are often named after the region where the grapes grow, so you got your own homegrown wine. La'asod kirtzon ish va'ish, to do according to the will of each individual person. Again, still describing the party. Amar Rava said, La'asod kirtzon Mordechai v'Haman. This means they did things according to the will of Mordechai and Haman. Mordechai, dichtiv. Mordechai, as it says, ish Yehudi. Mordechai is described as ish Yehudi. He's got that word ish used to describe him. And Haman is described as ish tsar ve'oyev. Right? He's a man who is an enemy, like a troublesome enemy. So somehow at the party they did kirtzon ish va'ish. They were doing the will of each person. Rashi says that Haman and Mordechai were actually both in charge of the Suda, of this fancy meal that Achashverosh threw, and so people were doing their will. Gam Vashti HaMalka asita mishte nashim beit HaMalchut. So Vashti also made a party for the women in Beit HaMalchut. So the Gemara says Beit HaNashim mibayilei. It should say that she made the party in Beit HaNashim. Right, the party was in the women's house. Amar Rava. So Rava said, Shneihen ledvar avera nitkavnu. Both of them, both Achashverosh and Vashti, had in mind evil things, dvar avera. Hainu de amrei inshe, and this is like the saying that people have, that famous saying, Ihu bekare, ve'itite bebutzine. He has his gourds, and she, his wife, has her zucchini, or smaller gourds. It's basically a saying that means like they're both of the same type. This is what Rashi explains. They're the same type of person. Okay, like maybe he does a little more than she does, but like they're cut from the same cloth. They're exactly the same type of person. If he has big gourds, she has little gourds. So that's another way of saying that they both had the same evil intents in mind. Bayom hashvi ketov lev hamelech b'yayin. Continuing the description of the party, on the seventh day when the king was happy from all his wine, atu ad hashta lo tav libe b'chamra. Does that mean that up until now his heart wasn't glad with wine? Right? It took 7 days to get drunk. Amar Rava explains, Yom hashvi'i Shabbat haya. The seventh day was Shabbat. Sheyisrael ochlin v'shotin. And that's when Jews, that's when Yisrael eat and drink. Matchilin b'divrei Torah u'b'divrei tishbachot. They start with divrei Torah, with words of Torah, and with words of praise. Aval avdei kochavim she'ochlin v'shotin ein matchilin ela b'divrei tiflut. But idol worshippers who just eat and drink, they start only with words of silliness. So let's change that to a comma. V'chen b'sudato shel Torah rasha. And so it was in the Suda of that evil person. That's exactly what happened. Halal omrim midayot naot. One group was saying the Median women are the prettiest. V'halal omrim parsiot naot. And the other was saying, no, the Persian women are the most beautiful. Amar lahem Achashverosh. Achashverosh said to them, Klisha ani mishtemesh bo eno lo midai. Sorry, that should be midai. V'lo parsi. So Achashverosh said literally the vessel that I use isn't Median and isn't Persian. Ella Kasti. But rather she's a Kasti. She's I don't know what the English would be, Kasdian. Chaldean maybe. Ritzonochem lirota. Do you want to see her? This beautiful vessel that I use? Amrulo. They said to him, yes, we do want to see her. Ubilvad sheteheh aruma. As long as she is naked. Shebamizah she'adam moded ba'modedin lo. because with the measure that a person kind of gives out to others, that's what's used to judge them, or that's what they get back. It's kind of like a version of what goes around comes around. Vashti harisha'ah, Melamed שהייתה ושתי הרשעה מביאה בנות ישראל ומפשיטן הרומות ועושה בהן מלאכה בשבת. This teaches us that Vashti, the wicked Vashti, would take women of Israel and strip them naked and have them do melacha on Shabbat. That's how she treated other women, and so that's what was done to her. And the Bach here changes, there's a small aleph in the text that's not reflected here, but the Bach changes the girsa slightly and adds in the words Lefichach nigzar aleha b'Shabbat, that actually, therefore, Vashti was punished on Shabbat. Tichtiv achar hadvarim ha'ela k'shochem ad hamelach Achashverosh zachar et Vashti v'et asher asatza v'et asher nigzar aleha. As it says, after those things, when the king was no longer so angry, he remembered Vashti and what she'd done and what had been done to her, or what had been decreed upon her. Kishem she'asta kach nigzar aleha. So it connects the words et asher asatza v'et asher nigzar aleha, right? That which she did and that which was decreed upon her, just as she did to others, so too was decreed upon her. But Tzima'en hamalka Vashti, and the queen Vashti refused. This is when she refuses to come to the party. Michte pritzita havai. But literally, since licentiousness was there, meaning didn't she want to? It's surprising that she refused, because didn't she want to? Wasn't she actually like not a modest person? Wasn't she actually someone who wanted to do this kind of thing? Da'amar, as we said earlier, as the master said, shnehen lidvar avera nitkavnu. They both intended for a dvar avera. So why did she refuse? Mai tam loate. Why didn't she come? Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina. Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina said, Melamed sheparcha batzarat. This teaches us that she became a mitzarah. She sprouted leprosy suddenly. B'matnitza Tana, in a Tanaitic source we learned, Ba Gavriel va'asala zanaf. Actually, Gavriel came and made a tail for her. Both sort of famous ideas about Vashti. One is that she got leprosy, and one is that she actually grew a tail. Neither of which is mentioned in the text, which is sort of surprising if either of these things happened. But those are the two theories about why she didn't come when she was called. Vayiksof hamelech ma'od. The king got very angry. Sorry, that's also a pasuk. Amay dal kabe kulehai. Why'd he get so angry at her? Amar Rava. Rava said, Shachale, she sent a message to him, Bar Ahuraira de Abba. You are the stable boy, basically, of my father. You're the horse keeper of my father. Abba lekabel alfa chamre shate v'lo rave. V'hahu gavra ishtate b'chamre miyad b'chamre. Miyad v'chamato ba'arabo. So you're just like the servant of my father, his stable boy, basically. And my father would drink 1,000 cups of wine, and he wouldn't be sated, meaning he wouldn't get drunk. And this guy, is drunk in his wine, right? He drank and he right away got drunk. Miyad v'chamato ba'arabo. So immediately the pasuk says v'chamato ba'arabo, right? That was the message that she sent to him that got him so angry that she really insulted him personally. Okay, the questions are listed below, and we'll stop here.